next panel, which is Creative Ecosystems and Regional Growth. This meeting will be featured, the speakers will be Abigail Abbott, the founder of New Dawn Art Center in Ashburnham. We'll also be joined by Edwin Cabrera, founder of the Lynn Music Foundation, and John Andrews, founder and CEO, all the things, John Andrews, all the things, Creative Collective. Please give them a warm, warm welcome to the stage. So today's panel is mainly around creative placemaking. We're exploring the powerful, wrong notes, my bad. Welcome to, off to a good start. It's the C. The C is, okay. Welcome to the Creative Ecosystems panel. We're exploring how organizations are building sustainable models that strengthen both themselves and their communities. I'm going to start by letting each of our panelists introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll get into our conversation. To my right, farthest right, we have Edwin.
Hey everybody, I'm Edwin Cabrera. I'm the executive director of the Lynn Music Foundation. We're based in Lynn, Massachusetts, in the Lynn Arts Building on Exchange Street. We have a black box theater space, recording studio, podcast studio, and we work with a lot of the local artists from the, I would say, the North Shore region, primarily Lynn and Salem.
Hello, good afternoon. John Andrews. I run an organization called Creative Collective. We're based in Salem, Massachusetts. We are a membership program similar to a chamber, but we focus very heavily on creative businesses, small businesses, micro enterprises. We have about 350 businesses throughout Essex County, and Edwin's one of our members.
Hi, I'm Abby Abbott. I'm the founder and executive director at New Dawn Art Center, which is in Ashburnham, just about 10 minutes north of here.
Thank you. I am Derek Craig, Chief Visionary Officer of COFF33 CORP. We do a lot of things. I don't know how to pinpoint just one, but hopefully through this conversation, you all will help me with that. So my first question is, how did your organization initially identify the creative needs in your community, and how's your approach to what you're doing today? How has it evolved from when you first started? So how did you get into it? What was the need that you're trying to address? And then how has that evolved now? We're in 2025.
Cool. So the Lynn Music Foundation started because my media company, Grindhouse Recordings, we were primarily serving the hip hop realm within Lynn. And one of the things that we do outside of just helping artists promote themselves and get themselves out there was we would also sit down and listen and talk to the artists about why they make music, their personal stories, through a podcast that we had called the Grindhouse Podcast. Over a span of we ran the podcast over a span of a few years, and while recording a lot of these interviews, a lot of the same questions and answers would be brought up. The question being what do you feel like Lynn needs to get to that next level? There's a lot of artists in Lynn of all different walks of life, but there's always sort of a need for something more and more support. So when I would ask these artists, what do you feel like Lynn needs? The main two things that we got was we need more people to attend our shows, and then we also need a place to be able to do shows, because there's very few places in Lynn where people can actually perform. Some bars here and there, but especially within the realms of hip hop. Hip hop is not accepted in all realms and all venues, so that's even harder if you're trying to be a hip hop artist who's trying to come up and be on the rise, to not have a place to be able to practice and build your audience. And so with those two things in mind, when we started the Lynn Music Foundation, our main goal was, number one, to find a gathering space, develop a gathering space acceptable for all local artists, and to accept every local artist within the Lynn and North Shore region. And number two, try to find ways to get local artists to get more support from the community. And we do this in different ways, obviously using the venue, providing workshops and resources, but also, as far as like getting artists more opportunities, doing stuff like music festivals, film festivals, ways for people to want to come out. Maybe if they don't want to come out for the artist, maybe they want to come out for the event and they discover the artists along the way. But essentially creating events and all these different things for people to come out and find out about these wonderful artists in our community.
Great. So the journey started with complete and total burnout. I was a chef for a long time, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And so I hopped into the community as a photographer, thinking I would be a famous photographer someday, and I never really got there. But I really noticed that there was a huge lack of support for non-traditional businesses, creative businesses, artists, makers, vendors, pop-up, market people. No one was actually getting business support. They didn't really fit in a chamber model. You know, these folks aren't going to be in BNIs. There was no business support for a lot of the small micro enterprises, creators that I knew, but they were bringing in significant revenue streams, creating placemaking opportunities, building community, all the things that we say we want. These creative folks were doing, but they didn't have the infrastructure or the ecosystem behind them to support them. And then a combination of that and just really seeing that the different languages between tourism, arts and culture, economic development weren't really meshing well. A big role that we play is kind of translator, living in that middle space between all of those ecosystems and figuring out how they work together better. COVID changed absolutely everything. Before COVID, we were very much event-based. That's how we were making most of our money. Even 350 members at $400 a year, I'm not paying a full team. Right. So we did a lot of events. We discovered the world of consultancies through COVID. We got brought in to do a few projects with Mass Development and some other partners, which was really great. And then we realized that we could actually build the ecosystems through that a lot better than one-off events.
Abby, how do you feel? What got you into?
I basically seized an opportunity to start a nonprofit around a building instead of the other way around. So this historic church property became available, and I jumped on the opportunity and created a nonprofit to gather the arts community in Ashburnham. I knew in my gut that kind of being just outside of Fitchburg and everything that's going on in Fitchburg, that we could piggyback on everything that's going on. And being right between Gardner and Fitchburg, we're a more rural location, but there's still a lot of artists, and we needed that like third space, a community meeting space, and that's what a church was doing in the past, and now we're able to continue doing that. We have historic piano concerts that have been going on in this church for 35 years, so it's already, in a way, been operating as an arts center. So it was an easy transition to make it, the change of use was not much. and I am participating at the Mass Creative Fellowship at this point, and I'm a fellow this year, and one of the things that I'm working on is like, how can we duplicate this in every small rural town that, they all have a little white church that's not doing well, and how can we use the infrastructure that's already out there and, use what we have in these small locations so that we don't have empty pockets throughout the state in between the small cities. We should have arts organizations in each small town and small city, and creating this regional, whatever it's going to be called, ecosystem is like exactly what I trusted would happen. And so it's very exciting to be here today and just soak up everybody's energy about this.
Yeah. So how do you, any one of you can answer this. With that, how do you do, sometimes the community, you hear voices of what they want versus doing things that are needed in the community? And or, Abby, like you're saying, right, like taking a building that otherwise might be unused and doing what was needed as opposed to what the community wanted.
Yeah, and Ashburnham is a very divided small town and lots of opinions about what should be done and what should not be done. We got a grant from Mass Cultural Council and Mass Development to help us purchase the building outright. And so getting some state level funding gave us some credibility to kind of override some local opinions that didn't line up with what they thought it was needed. So I found that really helpful, is just getting the support at a state level, and then all eyes from the local municipal government were suddenly on. It's like, whoa, how'd you bring in that state funding?
Right.
Like the arts were not on their radar at all.
Right.
They were working on economic development without even considering the arts.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered that.
No, it did. Edwin, I want to ask, can you, continuing on that, is there a specific model or approach that you can point to that's been helped you, develop the sustainability now, with having a space, knowing that this was something that, the artists, the community was saying that they wanted. Now, what was that approach? What does that look like?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I feel like as far as sustainability, that's still I would say that's always like a year-to-year thing, trying to figure out the long term, how we exist a year from now, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20. And I would say the first step that I took was I wanted to make sure I'm addressing a need and a want. And so the need for more spaces, the want for more support. And so for us, it was a matter of, we know these, especially the local creatives in Lynn, there's a lot of them. They just don't have a lot of places to be able to go to keep developing themselves. A lot of people are, on the level of I do this because I love it, but I also would love to do this if I can get paid to do it, even if I'm not getting paid to do it now. And so for us, it's how do we get these artists to a point where they feel like they can make money off the work that they are doing, if that's what they want to do with it, and get them to the point of having the resources that they feel like they need to get to that point. So for us, the venue, the Black Box Theater, the Neil Randall Theater, that's a big point because it serves multiple, the way the venue is kind of broken down, it's a multi-purpose venue. So we get to have multiple types of events catering to different types of creatives. Obviously, we're the Lynn Music Foundation, so a lot of the stuff that we focus on tends to be within music, but then we also offer other things for other artists, such as stand-up comedy, for example, helping develop that scene, especially in a place like Lynn where people are looking for somewhere to go, because there's not too many areas to hang out and kind of have a good time. So being able to provide a space that can be super modular in terms of what's being offered and what kind of events being held is a big aspect of that. And that was kind of servicing a need for gathering space. And then the want for the support is the other thing, is how do we get more people to support the local artists? I think John does an amazing job of that with the Creative Collective, and that's where we kind of lean to the Creative Collective for, especially on our end, trying to get that support and the counseling to get to the next level, but also with these artists, getting them in front of people and coming up with the event planning part on our end, so that all they have to do is show up and perform. That helps the artists out, because if an artist is trying to put a show together, a lot of them are, there's a lot of things that they can worry about on top of their performance. And so to be an organization like the Lynn Music Foundation, where we have a space, we're assisting in developing these events so that the artists can be paid to perform without the heavy lifting, it makes things a little bit easier for everybody. And over a period of time, we feel like it's going to be sustainable, because we have the place, we have the staff essentially working to help create these events, and now we have the artists who's looking to utilize the space and the events for to get their work out.
So speaking of that, John, can you speak to that? Like, how do you intersect with those artists who are in between, right? Like, there are many artists, many of us, again, we volunteer our time, we experience burnout, we would love to get paid. It sounds like things like the Creative Collective, what they offer, there are many other organizations, cultural groups, alliances, et cetera, that offer this type of service, but oftentimes find themselves struggling because, they may not see both the value in the organization and the value in their time that they're putting into what right now is a hobby or volunteerism, et cetera.
I mean, a lot of what I do on a regular basis is just try to teach people that they have value, that they should be valued. And then there's two parts of it. There's like, for the creator, it's like, I don't know why, but we don't put a lot of education or energy into, you are a creator, you're worth it, you're valuable, you have meaning. That's not even a money thing. That's just letting someone know that they're of value. What they do is of value. So we spend a lot of time doing that. I wish starting, in elementary school with kids that they were taught, it's not going to be an easy journey for you if you want to be in the creative side of things, but you can do it. There are a lot of people doing it. There are a lot of people that live very full, vibrant lives because of it. They may not be completely flush, they may not be rich, they may not be, but it's just like every other industry. There is a 1% that is, and maybe you'll get there. But there is good lives to be led by hard work in the creative sector, if you believe in that. But the mentality is, arts is not economic development. Arts is not money. It's not the fight that you have to go through to prove that it's worth it. That is what we're doing. And so we spend a lot of time doing that. When we finally get people to understand their value proposition, then we'll make the intersection with the municipal government, state government, and be like, guys, these are the stories, these are the people. You want community building, you want healing after COVID, you want placemaking, you want economic development. All of those answers are in arts and culture. So if you can start to really make that conversation happen, and they're two different languages. The other thing that I wish for is I wish more creative people had more financial literacy in their background, so they could understand how to manage money when you do start making it, because a lot of folks don't. So we take kind of all of those as we give our small business support. I call everyone a small business. That's if you're a mural artist, if you're a saxophone player, or you're a museum, everyone's in that small business ecosystem for us.
Could I just jump on that as a member of the Creative Collective? What I think they do really well at is, artists sometimes aren't the best at the business end of things, and particularly talking themselves up or knowing who to talk to about certain things or opportunities. I think the Creative Collective does a very good job at that when it comes to John, for example. He gets, he does this Creative Collective, Coffee with the Collective things monthly. He does a lot of events where there's so many different people in the room, from artists to arts administrators and everybody in between, potential sponsors, all these different types of people in the room. And he's good. I mean, in my case, he's connected me with so many different people because he's oh, Edwin does this person's looking for that, you two should meet. And, if you're kind of an artist on your own and you don't really have that kind of support or, collective to help kind of nudge you in the right direction, it becomes a little bit harder to do what you do. So having the Creative Collective that helps kind of give you that gentle nudge in the right direction, it means a lot. And that's why I know a lot of artists flock to the Creative Collective, because it's something that it's not maybe the biggest talent that creatives have, but having that kind of community to help you kind of push yourself in the right direction is very needed.
Very neat.
I didn't pay him anything for that.
That's free promo. Before I go into the next question, I'll say, from my standpoint, a lot of, being a new organization, having started Coffee Corp, really each of you on here, there's and for people who are familiar with Coffee Corp, there are elements that each of you do or have done, that okay, well, how can we adapt that? How can we build on that? and at the same time, like make these connections where, we're not necessarily recreating the wheel, and it also grows the ecosystem larger. And kind of with that, which leads into my next question, and I'm going to direct this to Abby first, but really for all of you, how are you, taking the growth that you're experiencing internally, and then telling that story? Again, Abby, you spoke to this about there could be, doubters or anything that in the community around the project or stuff like that. How are you handling and telling the story about, the growth and the success that is happening, that is impacting the community and the people who are doubters, naysayers, let's say?
That's a hard one for me because I struggle with it. I was just a stay-at-home mom when I started this with 5 young kids, and I actually went to college up on the North Shore for art, and I could kind of envision what I always wanted to do because I saw it happening up on the North Shore, and I thought it could happen in this area. Kind of just started doing it, and then like other people giving feedback and being like, this is awesome, this is amazing, look what you're doing, and that helped give me the confidence to like accept that I had actually done something. But yeah, it doesn't come naturally to realize, and when you're doing the busy work every day, it doesn't come naturally to realize, like, look at how much we've done in a couple years, and look at all these connections we made. I know so many people in this room, and it's really exciting, and I don't think we have great media or like ways to connect. Social media is not working the best. I don't know what the right way to reach out and let everyone know what we're up to. I don't know what the best way to do that is, but events like this are great.
John, you want to piggyback on that one?
Well, hopefully whatever I was doing on the North Shore helped with that, because I've been doing it for over 10 years. I mean, that's key. Like we need to know that stuff's happening. I never knew that was an inspiration. I didn't know where you had come from, but like just that one bit of something was working, and I don't even know exactly what you saw that was working, but something was working, led to a new nonprofit that's running a space that's kind of trying to transform the city that they're in, and then the region, and now you're trying to build an ecosystem beyond that, and that's because something was happening in the arts and culture space, and obviously it was out there enough that you noticed it, and that's key. Like how do we, I think storytelling right now is critically important. I think with the state of the world and all that, it's really important that we authentically be who we are and tell our stories in the way that we can. Obviously, it's getting harder and harder to do that. I can tell you I have been kicked out of a lot of rooms and I'm pushed off of a lot of tables because I tend to have a big mouth. And I like to disrupt because I don't understand why we don't just have the hard conversations, push them aside, and then move forward. That's how I was brought up. That's what I do. There is a lot of trauma, not only in the world, but in the creative community in general. And yes, we as creative people need to trauma dump. That doesn't mean we don't like you. That doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong as a municipal leader, as a government agency. It just means we've been through some, can I swear?
Yes.
We've been through some shit. And now we went through COVID. And you all leaned on the creative community through COVID, and you kind of spit us out when we were done. We want to talk about that. We want to talk about how important we are. We want to talk about why this actually matters. I beg you all to, not you, you're all indoctrinated in this, obviously, but the ones that aren't, how can we just have a conversation? We're emotional beings. There is so much neurodivergence in the creative community that we do not take any accountability for at all when we're having these conversations. So, my hope is we can storytell better. We can work to amplify the stories because you're too busy doing the work. I work with you. You're too busy doing the work. Who are the other storytellers in the community that can help amplify these stories and lift them up? I don't even know if I answered that
As
question.
you did, you did.
Great.
You did. It led, you know, it's which is great. And we're just going from, you know, boom, 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 one segue to the next segue, because, you know, to Edwin, like, how are you? I follow the Lynn Music Foundation. I know. So I don't know if other people know, but like, how are you measuring like the impact, right? Like, how are you then telling that story? Is it, you know, is it events like this? Is it how many people walk through the door? Is it, you know, me as, you know, oh, he gets to help one person. You know what I mean? Like, that's fantastic. We're better than we were yesterday.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say as far as measuring impact for us, you know, we do it in a couple of different ways. If you're looking at the quantitative, is like how many people are attending our events. On average, you know, how many people are going to an event that we hold. Figuring out, you know, what kind of events people would like to be a part of or see. And then just like seeing how the metrics are doing. Like, did people really want to go to that EDM show that we put together? Was that something the community wanted? Should we go in another direction? Is there a niche of people that we're not serving? And just seeing what the data tells us. The more tickets sold, that means that people are looking to go to that event. And we're still young. So Lynn Music Foundation, we were founded in September 2022. We're, you know, going into 3 years. So we're still trying to figure it out as far as like what works and what doesn't. It is a lot of like trying to really get a feeling for what the community wants through having a lot of conversations with the community. And that works itself in many different directions. Like you know, one of the beautiful things about the space that we have, the Black Box Theater space is, you know, when we started the Lynn Music Foundation, we obviously, our main mission and goal is music. But because we have this wonderful space that there is not too many of available in Lynn, you know, what we offer changed because we knew the community wanted just more than music, you know, because there's not that many spaces like the one that we have to do multiple different things in. And so people come to us all the time asking about, hey, I want to throw this kind of event here, or I would love to see this here because, you know, there's nothing like that here. And to, you know, a little bit into John's point, there's not that many people willing to listen to what the community wants. We're at that point, maybe because we're at the forefront of it, and we're really like I guess in the streets, like with the people, we kind of know what they want because they're not afraid to tell us. And so I listen to feedback all the time. I'm also seeing what sticks and what's successful and maybe what needs to get reworked because there's no magic formula. At least I haven't found it. So it's a lot of trial and error, and also just listening to the community.
It's what do you think strategies are? Well, all of you, like, are you survey people? Are we survey people in the room? Survey people? I know we are surveyed to death. But it's like, you know, surveys, one-on-one conversations, group sessions. Like, what does that look like for you?
I mean, I love low stress convenings. I like having real conversations with people. I mean, there is a place for surveys and stuff, but like the likelihood of either getting true authenticity out of that, like I just don't see it happening enough, or it becomes really, really full with a lot of people just bitching about things, and that's like not the solution either. We host monthly convenings. Those convenings work really well. We don't stand around a circle. We make sure that the right people are in the right room. We make sure that every space that we convene in is a safe, inclusive space. We won't host any of our coffees or any of our events if we don't feel that way. We vet everyone. And when you can create, especially for creative people, I don't know a lot of creative people that really can say out loud, I love to network. And so we make it so that they will. And if we're not filling, from a business perspective, it sucks because I don't have a lot of corporate people in my rooms. They don't pay the bills. I don't have a lot of sponsors. But I have a lot of people show up, and the conversations are very, very robust. And as long as then I can take that and do something with that, then that works.
Abby, how about you?
I've always operated in a very intuitive way based on feedback and community conversations and trying to provide what I think is needed and wanted based on what people are telling me. And turns out you have to have surveys and record keeping and, all these things if you want to get grant funding. So having just conversations is not enough. Like, you have to be tracking how many people are coming to every single event, how many people are walking through the door in the gallery every day. And, I don't know, like, what is the best way to prove that, like, I wish I could just, if I was better at social media, like just having a camera with me all the time, recording all of these amazing conversations that I'm having with people, but like, I'm not like a data person, so I'm struggling with that, like, being able to prove the impact that we're having, because I know we're having an impact, and it's hard as an artist, not as somebody who's into, the necessary record keeping that you have to do to prove the value in the economy. I don't know the answer.
No, that's great. That's great. Well, speaking of, selfless plug, at the registration table, there is a QR code that says, like, help us shape the future of arts and culture here in Fitchburg. That QR code, it is a survey, and it is to measure the impact. I think Noah might have brought it up, but it is to measure the impact that the creative economy is making, not just at the events, but at the surrounding businesses. As people come in here and they grab coffee and then they go to the library and then they may have to stop and get gas on their way out or something like that. Like, let us know how much money you're spending and while you're here in town, and that helps us tell that story. Like, hey, this event, the Creative Network Summit, was free to attend. However, while I was there, I had to get gas, and that cost me so much money. But I was here, and I traveled from the North Shore, and that was a travel, and I got gas in Fitchburg for an event in Fitchburg. I don't know. I have a final. I have not a final question, but I have a question, last question, and then I don't know if anyone, if the crowd has, the audience has questions. But I just wanted to ask each of you, like, can you just speak to, a lot of what we're here for the summit is the regional collaboration and growth. I'll start at the end with Edwin. How has the regional collaboration, like, how has that supported, the growth of your organization?
Yeah, so I'll talk about regional close and then kind of expand out from there. So as far as like region within the region that we serve in the North Shore, our success is because of our partnerships, starting with Creative Collective and then going to the Lim Museum, where before we used to just do events in partnership with the Lim Museum before we even had a space. So they used to do, they still do like Final Fridays and a bunch of different types of events free for the community. And when we just were just a group of people, Danica, who's the director, Danica Thurston is the director of the Lim Museum, would essentially hire us to put on some events for the community. And that grew into like a partnership that eventually culminated in, once this theater space became available, they offered it to us because they're like, well, we see what you're doing within the community. We would like to see more of that. We know that you're looking for a space. Here's a space. And so, within the local community, we've had a lot of support. And then as we grow, where we're at now, we're looking to do more partnerships with people outside of communities. For example, like places like Fitchburg, places like Worcester, Springfield, Lowell, Brockton. Cities very similar to Lynn that may also have a similar, arts and culture, layout. Because it might help all, like a rising tide raises all boats kind of thing where, for example, I'll use our comedy nights for an example. We do a monthly comedy show called Stand Up, Stick Up. We're trying to figure out a way to get more people to come to the shows. And one of the things that we've realized is, the better the headliner, the more people come to the shows. The headliners obviously cost a certain amount of money to bring in. But if you incentivize them by creating, multiple stops. So for example, if you're a, comedian from New York and you're only playing at one venue over the weekend, that's just one place. But let's say, for example, you have a gig booked at Wilbur on a Saturday night and maybe a smaller venue on the Friday night. And even then, an even smaller venue on that Thursday night, which would be us, then now you're getting, 3 bookings in one weekend as opposed to just one booking for that one big show you're doing. And so we're trying to identify, potential growth points like that, like identifying, certain performers, headliners who could stand to add another day
Right.
for the performances, that would help create a sort of pipeline, like a touring
Yeah,
pipeline.
a tour, yeah.
And we want to do the same
nice.
thing when it comes to musicians as well. There's Worcester, Fitchburg, you guys are probably in a better spot touring-wise, because people can go to New York, pass through here, and then kind of go wherever they want from there. I think in Boston, and that area becomes a little tougher because it's a little bit more farther out. So it's not like you're in between two places, you're kind of like at the end of one. But we're trying to figure out ways to create pipelines with general creatives and artists and these types of events, so that it's not just our venue people are coming to, but let's say, for example, if they can stop in Worcester, Fitchburg, and then go over to Boston, and then come to Lynn, now incentivizes more performers, and hopefully are getting more people to come out in these different towns for these type of creative events.
John?
Yeah, I think the pipeline model is something we've been looking at a lot. I can't expand the way I would like to expand just out of sheer bandwidth and funding. I mean, I would love to drop a collective in every major pocket, whether it's Central Mass, Western Mass, Cape, like whatever, and then create some sort of an intersection. I mean, I do see what we've created could be kind of on par with what chambers are, and we could pocket those in places. I really wish I had started all this like 20 years ago. But so, interregionally, like for us, it's Essex County. What we found is it just creates more opportunities because we have so many creative people that need ticket sales, mural artists that need commissions. The more broad my ecosystem is, the more opportunities for the folks in our program. So, we're on every listserv for every arts and culture RFP through most of Essex County. We can categorize that and then send that out as opportunities for our members. They benefit from it greatly. It also opens up more members for us because people are like, I got that opportunity through Creative Collective. That's awesome. What do I need to know about them? Beyond that, I think it's events like this. I know Tiffany's supposed to be here at some point. Tiffany from Springfield brought us to a panel as well. And Tiffany and I had this really interesting conversation about how I made the decision, and the reason I don't do surveys as much as I should, I'm a for-profit. I am not a nonprofit organization. I don't need to do those things because I'm not necessarily going for grant funding. But Tiffany really wanted to do what we're doing for direct business support. I want to re-grant money, so I would love to be some sort of a nonprofit. I'm never going to go nonprofit. She's never going to be for-profit. How do we collaborate together? And is there a pipeline being able to be created? I see, like Edwin sees, this journey of how many mural artists would be able to be full-time mural artists if they got 5 or 6 gigs starting in Boston and going all the way out to North Adams. Like, there's so much there that could be done. So that exploration of pipeline and that ecosystem it's important. I don't think I've totally figured it out yet. And Edwin can tell you, we're very hands-on. I didn't want to give me your membership fee, get on a directory, and that's the end of it. That's not what we wanted to do. I don't know how to provide the level of one-on-one service that we do at scale. It's something we're trying to consider. I turned 50 this year. I don't have 30 years in me to do this. As a for-profit agency, I don't have a legacy plan. These are all things we're trying to sort out. So having these bigger conversations and being invited to meet other organizations that are doing that, I think, is critically important.
That's great. And Abby, how about you?
I think what I thought was, again, just like an intuitive process for me was collaborating with, and a smaller scale up in Ashburnham, but working with the library and the school districts and the private school, and the food. We have a food store downstairs, and working with the farmers and the farmers markets and the land trusts, and like that's what we have up there, and a lot of conservation land and recreation going on. And so how, like, to me, these things are all obviously related, and now I can see that it's like cross-sector and the hospitals in Gardner and theater groups that are working on mental health and LGBTQ groups that are working on mental health, and these are all like groups that we work with, and I call it all art, but it is all different things. And so I guess like that's how they all connect to me, is they can all be based around the arts. And I've been trying to figure out like what is the best way to connect nonprofits and for-profits. Like, is it some sort of cooperative? What is the right collaborative model to show how much these groups support each other already?
Thank you. Thank you. So briefly, I want to, does anyone, we have, see, look at that, back on time, almost, kind of. Do we have any questions from the audience? Does anyone have questions for our panelists?
Test, 1, 2.
Thanks, Merrick.
Hey, Pedro.
Hello, Derek. Thank you so much for putting on this great event today. It's really great to see so many creative minds come together to try to solve some of the biggest issues in the community. A lot of really great opportunities. But my name is Pedro Soto. I work with mass development. I oversee the creative work at TDI, and this question actually is for Abigail. Really great project, by the way, in activating kind of adaptive reuse of the church property. There's a lot of people in the creative community thinking about real estate, activating it to really drive the bottom line in their organizations. As for folks who are just thinking about activating real estate to drive the bottom line in their organizations, what should they be thinking about before they get started? What are some things that the soft skills that they should be building now to be ready to do that?
I mean, for the first couple years that I was working on this, I was basically the church's property manager. So, just you have to like quickly develop all the skills, and then, and that's everything from scheduling to maintenance to historic preservation, restoration, hiring the plow guy, like everything for the building I was doing for the last couple years before I created the Art Center, because I was trying to get my foot in the door. And so it was a lot of prep work. And then I went the nonprofit route, so I had to learn everything about becoming a nonprofit. And then ended up spending too much of my time focused on fundraising and realizing that that's the rest of my life, is focusing on fundraising. But trying to divide up your time between the arts and the other work that has to be done, because the arts are what make it exciting. And when I get too focused on the business parts of it, I get bored with it. So I always come back to the arts. But I would say the model that I found that works is having a few small groups that can provide rental income. Simple as that, is like trading off working with other groups and trading off what you need. So for the church that I'm in, they wanted to continue to be a small church, and they could pay a rental income. They didn't want to take care of a giant building anymore. And I said, I'd love to take that off your hands, and you can provide rental income for us. So it's almost like just starting with a business plan. And as a nonprofit, you can't have too much rental income, but you can have some. So I think a lot of arts folks may not be thinking like of the business plan first, and how to sustain the business side of it to make the art side of it possible. So.
Do you have any other questions? Merrick is on his way.
Hi, I have one for the gentleman from the Lynn Music Facility.
How far from your center do you sense people come? I guess it probably depends on the performers and the shows and things like that. Are you unique within your pocket of the North Shore? Do people come from Everett and Revere, or is that too far? I mean, I'd be curious your draw.
So I would say most people that attend our events generally come from the North Shore area. I can't give you a percentage, but I would probably say in the range of like 70-ish% are from the North Shore area, especially Lynn and Salem. And then we do have people that come as far as Vermont, but those are for like the special, like, especially when we have events that are, because we have most of our events, we cater towards local artists. So when I'm booking artists, it's usually from the artists from the Lynn, Boston, Salem, like that general area, who aren't, for example, playing at the Middle East or Paradise Rock Club, who are looking for a venue that's like 150 capacity, which is our venue. So most of our patrons come from the surrounding areas. When we have a larger performer come in, somebody that could, pull a larger crowd but wants a more intimate space like ours, we generally see the people coming in from like as far as like Western Mass and Vermont and New Hampshire. But I would say, mostly in the Lynn, Salem, Boston area are where our patrons are coming from.
And just one added question, more just because I can't remember the order of how things unfolded. As the arts community in Lynn was blossoming, and I keep thinking back to Beyond Walls and, the murals and all like that, was your music-related organization happening at the exact same time, or did it predate that or come after that? In other words, when people started thinking of Lynn as an arts community, did it begin with the visual arts, or were the performing arts right there at the same time?
The performing arts were always there. I would say always as in like 30 years plus. I mean, Lynn is a very creative city. Before, places like Beyond Walls and even the Lynn Music Foundation and a lot of these organizations existed, there were some like really good old ones, like Raw Artworks has been embedded in the city of Lynn since the 80s. But generally speaking, the arts have been in Lynn for a very long time, and I feel like that happens generally in areas like a Lynn, like a Brockton, Lowell. There's a lot of art because what else is there to do, And so Lynn, especially when it comes to like hip hop, for example, there's a big community. And then the visual artists as well, in that when I talk visual art, I'm also talking graffiti. That was also big in Lynn. So there's a big art scene even before these organizations came to Lynn. And I think, a part of why we're here as a organized, entity is to help kind of keep pushing that and progressing that forward because it's already there. Our job now is to keep on supporting the arts and get it to an even higher level. And that's why we do the work that we do.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. Oh, I see a question in the back.
So thanks for you guys coming out from the North Shore. I've heard it's a very cool area. Like the Art New England lady, she says it's her top favorite part of the state. Anyway, so you guys must do a good job. But I wanted to ask a question was it John? So how did you get the idea to start your organization? Was it a need, driven by need, or what was the beginning of it?
1 second on that. To Edwin's point about Lynn, because I wanted to mention, Beyond Walls was inspired by local graffiti artists. Before any of Lynn Music Foundation happened, which I know Edwin has celebrated, WFNX was based in the same building. There are pictures of the Red Hot Chili Peppers at Capitol Diner that's still there sitting, it's in that light, like, the journey of all of these cities, I just wish, just because you have a PR agency and you can really get the word out there doesn't mean that it's the best thing for the city. There is so much that happens in our cities that needs to be amplified before we get there. And there's just, Edwin knows, there's been a lot of back and forth about what made Lynn. Why is Lynn such an arts and culture hub? Lynn has always been an arts and culture hub. So is Salem, so is Fitchburg, so is Holyoke, so is Springfield. And, you know, I think to that point again, if you know something's happening that's cool, amplify it as much as you can, because you never know who it's going to inspire, who's going to be next. As far as my inception point, sheer and utter frustration, and seeing so many people that were changing narratives, creating community, you know, exuding inclusivity, and they never had any support. And when they would go to places like a chamber, or they would go to places like a BNI or a networking group, when I came up, everyone was doing entrepreneurial groups. And even that, it was an excuse to go out and get drunk. Like, there wasn't necessarily, it wasn't really business support. It wasn't creating sustainability for these people that were really creating revenues, building economic development, supporting our tourism, like all of these things that actually create better communities, quality of life, property values, health and wellness, all came from people that didn't have any business support at all. And so that's kind of a frustration, burnout from restaurant life, wanted to do something else. There was one gentleman that I had met, he was a photographer for Patch, really good photographer, couldn't figure out how to make a living, huge advocate of the LGBTQ community, and went out and started his own nonprofit. No one knew what to do with him, but he could fill any space like that. And the bar was making money, and people were spending money, and like, but he would go to the chamber and they'd be like, yeah, we don't get that model. You're not really selling anything. So I started meeting more and more people that were just really making Salem, and everyone thinks Salem's the coolest place, a really interesting place with really interesting, but no one knew how to sustain it, you know? And even to this point, 20 years later, and I will give our now Lieutenant Governor Driscoll credit, she basically forced all of us as a community to do a major festival a month for a whole year. So Salem has almost one major festival every single month for the whole year. Obviously, everyone knows about Haunted Happenings. It's big, it's huge, there's a ton of money. I do a lot of work with Haunted Happenings. But like, now we're at a point where none of those festivals can really sustain. They're not getting the funding, they're not getting the support, they're all volunteer driven. The sponsors aren't spending the way they were spending before. I'm seeing a lot of banks cutting their funding to arts and culture projects. And if you're not in a community that's a true gateway city, it's really hard to keep any of these things afloat. So I just wanted to help. I wanted to figure out, how do we not lose these things that are making our communities pretty amazing? I had no qualifications to do this. I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing most days. But like, I hear that, and I hear that I've helped an organization make it, or at some point you being inspired by what's happening on the North Shore. I mean, today it's a small but mighty group. Like, it's inspiration to just not stop. So I don't know that I have like the most amazing business model, but I know that I sleep well at night and I'm helping people. And Tiffany's here, and everyone should stay for Tiffany because Tiffany's awesome.
Well, thank you all for that. Want to give everybody, just give them, 30 seconds, elevator pitch, things that they can go out into the community with, and then we'll get into our next panel. Start at the end.
Cool. So yes, Edwin Cabrera, Lynn Music Foundation. Look us up on Instagram. You'll be able to check out a lot of our updates and events through the Instagram page. There's also our website, www.linmusic.org. And yeah, check us out. We have a bunch of fun events happening. We have an event tonight if you happen to be in the Lynn area, free to attend. We have a screening tomorrow night, and then a bunch of other events coming up that you can check out on our Instagram page.
I would say whatever you can do to not get kicked out of rooms but be disruptive, please do. I think we all kind of have an underlying understanding that, whatever's being said at the federal level about DEI, arts and culture is DEI. There is no separation of the two. So just keep doing the work that you're doing, create inclusive events, make people show up. Even if you don't call it something, that doesn't mean that's not what it is. And just keep trying to figure out ways to work together, partner together, collaborate together. And if you if you see someone in the community that's doing really, really good work, and I'm going to call Tiffany out again, and she hates when I do this because I do it every time I'm on mic now. Build those people up as much as you possibly can. I don't like doing all of this. I like to work. It's my thing. But I have to because it's like it's going to help. But like if you do see someone that has that voice, that has that power, that's willing to step up in public spaces, never cut them down, always build them up, and do your best to support them.
I guess the nonprofit that I started was built out of the middle of the pandemic, and it really was about getting back into public spaces together and combating loneliness and isolation. And so I guess please reach out to me if you want to work together. I'm trying to do the best I can to latch on to the other communities in the area and make sure that we're involved and taking care of each other, and I want to meet you, so please come talk to me.
Well, thank you. Thank you all. Can we all give a round of applause to our panelists, Edwin, John, and Abby? Thank you all for your time. We're going to